Should the Toronto Blue Jays re-sign Yusei Kikuchi? Plus, we're going to go over just how bad these Fanatics jerseys are on today's episode of Locked On Blue Jays.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKED ON for $20 off your first purchase. So we've talked a ton about Yusei Kikuchi. He had an absolutely electric start, for the first 2 innings that he did pitch in spring training. But we've had a lot of comments saying, why is there no talk around the Blue Jays re-signing Yusei Kikuchi? So today we really want to do a full deep dive into, do we honest to God think that Yusei Kikuchi should come back for a few more years? And then, of course, we really want to get into these Fanatics jerseys and pants that have been blowing up Twitter, it seems like, and sort of the whole baseball world of just how horrendous these things are. They are horrible. But first of all, Carter, I'll let you sort of go over Yusei Kikuchi's stats from last season. I'll get into the spring training stats, and then I'll send it back to you for the projections for next season.
Yeah, what a ride it has been for Yusei Kikuchi with the Toronto Blue Jays. We go back to his first year in 2022. He's getting paid $16 million that year. Looks absolutely horrible. One of the worst pitchers in the league that year. And we're like, oh, God, what did we sign ourselves up for with this guy? He was into his 30s already when we signed him. Did not look good. When we got him, he was coming off of an all-star year, an electric left-hander, always had good stuff. 95 plus mile-an-hour fastball. It's tough to find in the major leagues. So going into that year, we were excited about him. Horrible year. A lot of people were like, Kikuchi's terrible. Let's buy out his contract. Let's move on. Like, we can't see this guy pitch again. And rightfully so, because with him and Jose Barrios that season, they both looked terrible. And from a Blue Jays pitching standpoint, fans were very worried about what the season was going to look like. And then the starter curse again with Alek Manoah in 2023. Same thing with Jose Barrios in 2022. It just seems like our opening day starter has seemed to struggle for the last couple of years. And we needed a guy, especially with Alek Manoah being so bad in 2023. We needed him, Kikuchi, and Jose Barrios to bounce back. And boy, did we ever get that with Kikuchi's stats. So I'm just going to break it down real quick. His ERA was 3.86, one of the best of his career, 167.2 innings pitched, 2.6 WAR. He had 9.72 strikeouts per 9 and a 1.45 home runs per 9, some of the best stats of his career. It's a huge season that kind of gets swept under the rug a little bit, I think, because with how bad Manoah was, Kikuchi having a bounce back season the way he did was so huge for the Blue Jays' success, especially when they were so bad from an offensive standpoint. Kikuchi developed into one of the best left-hander pitchers in the league, especially in the second half of the season, where he did lead the American League in ERA for a significant portion of that second half. And just a huge guy to have a bounce back, making only $10 million last year and this year, having a top-loaded contract. It's a huge signing for the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, and of course, going into spring training, we've talked so much about what Yusei Kikuchi would bring this year, if he was going to regress, if we were going to see him continue to be the great pitcher that he was from last season. He gets his first spring training start and sort of has an electric outing. I thought he was going to get 4 strikeouts in his first thing, and everybody's saying, oh, that's crazy. He's probably only going to get 2 innings. Well, he got 2 innings, only gave up 1 hit. He had 3 strikeouts, 0 runs given up, an absolute electric performance out of the first 2 innings. Don't get me wrong. It is only 2 innings. It is his first spring training start. But when we look at these spring training starts and we look at, okay, how are these guys looking, right? It's not just about their stats necessarily, but it's about how they look. How confident are they? Are they picking their spots? Are they finding where to put pitches? Are they understanding what pitches to throw when? Do they have a good relationship with the catcher? It's all stuff that plays into the bigger factor of how the season's going to play out. And so far, Yusei Kikuchi looks like he is going to be dominant. Now, I know you pulled up the projections for this year for Yusei Kikuchi. Do you want to go over them quick, and then we can sort of talk about, do we think they're going to hit or not?
Yeah, the projections for this year, they have Kikuchi having a little bit of regression, which is fair because he did put up a lot of career highs from this past season. So on Zips, his projections are 151 innings pitched with a 4.38 ERA, a 1.6 WAR, 9.09 Ks per 9, and a just slightly higher 1.46 home runs per 9. If you can get this from a fourth starter in Yusei Kikuchi, again, being from the left side, one of the best left-handers in the league, if he can continue what he did last season, this year, he'd be one of the best, left-handed pitchers in the league with electric stuff. That slider looks so good. Throws that 30% of the time. The fastball, he has 95 plus mile an hour fastball. Again, it's so cool watching him pitch. Just from his arm slot, he comes so far outside of the mound. It's a different look for hitters, especially with not seeing as much left-handed pitching. As for these projections, I actually like them a lot. I do see Kikuchi having a little bit of regression. It's tough to keep up with how good he did in the second half of last season. Like I said, led the league in ERA for a little bit, and then kind of had some spotty starts in September and October. And I think if he didn't have those starts, he probably would have been top 3 in ERA in the second half for the entire second half. With Kikuchi, he looks confident, and that is exactly what you like to see in spring training. It's not as much the stat lines and how, like, if he's giving up a bunch of hits and whatnot. It's about the command. It's about how he looks, and it's how you start trends. If he can he's clearly keeping the momentum from last year in spring training, and we kind of see the same thing with Alek Manoah in a sense, where he didn't look good last year. Again, did not start off great in spring training. So you have to start somewhere, and it's nice to see that Yusei Kikuchi had a good start at the start of spring training. But we're looking for that consistency down the stretch, and so we can keep this starting rotation as one of the best in baseball.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know or don't notice like how good Kikuchi is for being our fourth starter. I think that's a huge component which goes into making this pitching staff great, is that you can go down this lineup and Kikuchi could probably be a second starter for some teams, right? Where he's that good. We have that good of a pitching staff that he's our number 4. And yeah, realistically, like I said, he could definitely be a number 2 for some teams. So his value to this group and this team, I think, is unmeasured. And especially with the rest of the guys on the staff, they've done a fantastic job of staying healthy for one, being consistent, at least for the top 4. The 5th starter, I mean, we've talked enough about Alek Manoah. But yeah, I think if Kikuchi can continue his pace from last season, he's going to have an amazing year this year. And we don't need him to be, absolutely unbelievable. We just need him to be consistent. And he was absolutely unbelievable last year. But if he could just stay consistent this year, have good outings, that's as much as we need, especially if the bats wake up this season. Kikuchi has found himself a lock spot in this lineup that unless he really throws it away, he's going to be our number 4.
Oh, just going into his last season again, his hard hit percentage was way down compared to the last 2 years. He had 181 strikeouts in 2023 compared to his only 124 in 2022, which is almost a 1/3 increase in strikeouts. And that just shows, I mean, obviously a little bit of that is innings pitched and just how effective Kikuchi was. This was another guy we were seeing go into the 5th, 6th inning, which we didn't see a lot of in 2022, especially when we had a guy like Ross Stripling, who was only a 1 to 2 times to the order kind of guy. So just getting these less longevity from our pitchers in these games, going deeper into the games, helps with the bullpen as well. You saw our bullpen have a lot of success last year, and a lot of these guys weren't needing to be overthrown, other than for some reason Eric Swanson, which was very mismanaged in my opinion. But when you have pitchers going into the 5th, 6th inning, it just allows for the bullpen to rest. You can put guys in specific situations. You don't have to just throw in a guy because he's the only one you have available. And I think as a tribute to Yusei Kikuchi's stats, was just another year with Danny Jansen, Pete Walker, and Alejandro Kirk. Jansen and Kirk now can kind of realize how Kikuchi likes to pitch, what works for him, what doesn't, and they can apply that into the game scenarios. They see what Kikuchi's doing. They know he has electric stuff. He's got a great slider, a nice hard fastball. It's tough to keep up with. So it's nice that Jano and Kirk had another full year with Kikuchi under their belts. And it just helps with team chemistry. They can develop him a little bit more. They understand what he likes, what he doesn't like. And clearly that worked for his effectiveness this last season.
Yeah, the pitcher-catcher relationship is such a big thing, and usually it takes a few years to get that built up and really understand what your guys wants to throw, especially as a 4th starter, right? It's different when it's the number 1 guy and you're working with them consistently and all the time. But as a 4th guy, it's nice to see that they're finding that rhythm and that routine. And on the same fact of Kikuchi's strikeouts, actually, the betting apps didn't keep up with the amount of strikeouts he's getting per game. So it was a super easy hit last year. They were slotting him in as 4.5 strikeouts over under, and he was blowing those out of the water. So look at that if you're getting into betting this year, you're going to be betting on Blue Jays games. Keep an eye on Kikuchi's strikeout line. It's a great one. I hit that all the time last year. So just sort of keep up because he looks really good. He looks like he's going to be striking out guys. That slider that he uses so effectively is such a big pitch in his arsenal that he's going to be racking up those strikeouts again. But we do want to get into his contract. Should we re-sign him? Should we not? Where does he fit into the grand scheme of the Blue Jays over the next few years? And we'll get into all that next. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. You can get last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals. It's the easiest way to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. You get views from the seats in the venue, lowest prices guaranteed, event cancellation protection, job loss protection. You can see the view from your seats. You know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total up front, so you know what you're getting a great deal before you check in. And you can buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps of the screen. I know we went to a game and a Jets game a while back. We used Game Time. It was fantastic. We got that $20 off promo. And then we sat 4 rows up from the glass. It was absolutely fantastic. We got to see where we were sitting, so we knew, okay, are we going to miss any action from these seats, or are these seats good enough, high enough where we can see everything? And it showed us to that before, so we knew exactly what was going on. The price was unbelievable. That's why, we're not guys that are going to go sit, 4 rows up from the glass too often. But if you get prices like that, it was like a green dot. So it means your price was really good. So we're like, okay, we got to jump on it. We got to get it. But make sure you guys download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. So as we have talked about, and I think we have had so many comments about people asking us, why is there no talk about re-signing Kikuchi or extending Kikuchi for a couple more years with how electric he's been? And we've talked about it just in this last segment of how his stats show that maybe this is a guy that we should look to re-sign. Carter, do you want to go over his last season or his the contract he's on right now?
Yeah, so it's a 3-year, $36 million deal. Like I said before, it was top loaded. So he got paid $16 million in 2022. Then last season it was 10, and then this season it's going to be 10 again. So a very team-friendly contract for especially how efficient Kikuchi was last season. The problem with extending him is he hasn't really shown this consistency throughout his career. And the Toronto Blue Jays have a very unique pitching staff right now, as they have Bowden Francis, who's 27, a younger guy entering his prime. They obviously have Ricky Tiedemann, one of the top left-handed prospects in the league. And then we have Yariel Rodriguez inked up to a 5-year contract. Then you got to think as well, you got Kevin Gausman for another few years. You have Jose Barrios for another 5, I believe it is. Bassett's on another 2-year deal. So you do have a lot of pitching depth on this roster right now. The only thing is you don't have a lot of left-handed pitching depth, but you really only have Ricky Tiedemann as a starter that can slide into that left-handed starting role. So with Kikuchi, I'm honestly pretty undecided on what I want them to do. I think that it's really going to come down to this season. If Yusei Kikuchi can have another very effective season, then I would love them to re-sign him. It's tough to find left-handed pitching in this league as effective as Kikuchi, and just as fun as he is to watch. I know the fans really got behind him last year. They had Kikuchi Corner. Everyone loved watching the Kikuchi strut coming off of the mound. And I found it funny that actually at one point he had a helmet on, like he was going to enter the game to base run. So Kikuchi's really a guy that can do it all. And it's nice to see that he really cares about this baseball team. But as for a contract extension, if I had to guess, I honestly do not think the Jays are going to do it. I know a lot of fans aren't going to like that. And I just think it's because of the talent we already have in this pitching staff. There's a lot of factors that go into this. If Alek Manoah bounces back, if Bowden Francis can step into a more consistent role, if Ricky Tiedemann develops, it's really based off of what you get from other players on your roster this upcoming season. It's really up for debate. It could go either way. Braden, where do you see Kikuchi signing? Do you see him having an extension with the Toronto Blue Jays, or do you kind of see the Jays cutting ties at the end of this year?
Yeah, it's a very interesting contract to look at because I think for the value that the contract is right now, it's a fantastic deal. We're so lucky to have him. I'm a little bit personally, I would love for them to re-sign him. If he has another great season like last year, I think I would love for them to re-sign him. But yeah, I'm a little bit unsure if they are willing to probably pay the price that he's going to be asking after the season if he comes off another great year. If he continues to pitch like he was last year, the asking price is going to be much higher than it was this year. And I think maximum the Jays would give him would be a 2-year extension, if anything. So, which I'd be thrilled with. I think if you can get Kikuchi locked up for an extra 2 years after this, I think that is the way to go. But overall, no, I'm sort of with you. I don't think that this is a top priority with this Blue Jays management right now.
It's just such a hard situation for the Blue Jays to manage when you have Kevin Gausman under contract for a long time. You have guys like Vladdy coming into free agency, Bo Bichette in 2 years, Danny Johnson's this next upcoming season. And then, like I said, with all of your pitching depth, it's tough to see them throwing another $20 million plus contract to another pitcher, especially when they do have younger guys who aren't necessarily better than Kikuchi, but do have possibly higher ceilings, like guys like Ricky Tiedemann. You could argue that Bowden Francis has a higher ceiling. Yariel Rodriguez looked great in Japan 2 years ago. So it's right now it's very tough to speculate. But the thing is, I think if the Jays realize they're not going to re-sign Kikuchi, I would not hate them exploring a trade at the deadline for a guy like Yusei Kikuchi if you get the development from Ricky Tiedemann or Yariel Rodriguez to just be able to make some spot starts for this season. Because it's not just about this season for me. It's for the future as well. You don't want to ink up Kikuchi, especially if he's kind of showing signs of inconsistency this year, to a 3, 4, 5+ year deal, especially when for a guy that's 32 years old and like I said, you have so much young talent on this team. It's going to be tough for me to see a contract extension. But you saying that, like if you can get anywhere close to what he's on right now, I don't think there's any reason the Blue Jays shouldn't offer him a $10 to $15 million contract. It's just the asking price he's going to want compared to the Blue Jays price to get him back on this team. I don't think those numbers are going to line up very well near the end of the season.
Yeah, and I think it's very situational when we look at this, right? Does Manoah have a bounce back, which you touched on, right? If he doesn't, that opens up that 5-hole for Bowden Francis or Ricky T to slide in, right? But then it's okay. Now, what do you do with the other guy? Is there going to be room for them? And if those two guys really develop this year into MLB starters, that puts even more pressure on the situation because you have to make a decision at this offseason, like you said, with the trade deadline. If you're in a playoff push, you have to make the decision, okay, are these young guys good enough where they can come up and help us in the playoffs? Or do we need Kikuchi this season to make a deep run? And if you're at the end of at the trade deadline, if you don't think that Yusei Kikuchi is realistically going to help us make a deep playoff run, then you have to move on from him to bring in some pieces, probably some bats, probably some guys that can hit for some power in the lineup. But at the end of the day, of course, I would love Kikuchi to re-sign here. I love him. He's a fan favorite. He's one of my favorite players to watch. He's one of my favorite players to bet on, as I said. So he's fun. But there's a lot of variables that go into this. And I think as this season progresses, we're going to see more and more of the decision sort of making the decision getting made for itself, I think, a little bit more. Right. So when we hit that halfway through the season mark, that trade deadline mark, we'll start to really just know for sure where this team is at with Yusei Kikuchi.
Yeah, and just in a perfect world, like Ricky Tiedemann has a great season and he's MLB ready. Bowden Francis is consistent. Alek Manoah comes back to his regular form. If you have all this perfect world, you have Yusei Kikuchi being having another stellar year. You have all this pitching depth, and I think at the deadline there's going to be more talks. Hey, we need bats, which is fairly obvious just based on what we did this offseason. So if you have the ability to trade a guy like Yusei Kikuchi and get a power bat at the deadline, like you said, you have to weigh, is Kikuchi going to help this team go into a deep playoff run more than a guy you can get at the deadline that's going to hit 20, 25 home runs on the year? And that's something the Blue Jays staff is going to have to weigh. And just the way I see it is that you have so much depth on this pitching staff and not a lot of depth in the big leagues, especially from a power hitting standpoint. I see it in the Blue Jays' best interest to probably move on from Kikuchi. But again, it's all speculation. You got to see if Manoah is going to bounce back. You got to see if Bowden Francis is going to work out. You don't want to leave this pitching staff understaffed and under-talented, I guess you could say. You don't want to leave them stranded and just like you trade Kikuchi and then who's your fourth or fifth starter even. You don't want to leave these guys in a hole and have to overwork your starters so they're not ready to go in the playoffs.
Well, and one of the biggest things is having that left-hander available for the playoffs. We need that. So if we don't have another guy that can come in there and do the work as a lefty like Kikuchi, then that is a move that we realistically have to understand. And we have to understand that we need Kikuchi for the playoffs because you'll need a lefty in some of those games. And yeah, I don't think necessarily. There's a lot of pieces going into this. I'm sort of jumbled a little bit. I don't really know which way I fall. I think that Kikuchi is a very strong piece, and we need a good lefty for playoffs if we're making a deep run. So, in my view, I think we should sign him for a 2-year extension, most likely halfway through the season at the deadline, so we know that he's sticking around. But it's all going to depend on this first, third half of this or third part of this season.
Yeah, if I had to guess a contract for Kikuchi for him to remain with the Toronto Blue Jays, I do have him at that same thing, 2-year deal. Probably going to command between 16 and 18 million dollars, and that would be more team friendly. I'd even have to say. Other than that, if it's even higher, the Toronto Blue Jays aren't going to have a tough time bringing him back on this Blue Jays pitching staff. But another good thing with Kikuchi is that he does have some middle relief innings work last season. He is a guy that has been able to show success coming out of the bullpen. And that's a huge piece that you could have in the playoffs because normally you go to a 3 to 4 man rotation in the playoffs. Alek Manoah, if he's pitching the way he is, hopefully is never sniffing a playoff game. You really just rely on Kevin Gausman, Jose Barrios, Chris Bassett, and then you get Kikuchi in to maybe make a spot start or go in the middle long relief innings. Yeah. So Kikuchi does have a huge role on this team. It's really we're gonna have to see how the cards fall. But in my opinion, if the Jays have to make a decision, I have them moving on from Kikuchi just based off their pitching depth in the big leagues.
Talking about the playoffs, because of course we have to make that. We're in the mindset that the Blue Jays are a playoff team. And when I'm thinking about that, I don't want to see it come to a position where the Blue Jays have to make a bullpen start in the playoffs. That is not what I want to see happen. If anything, that's why I think keeping Kikuchi around is the right thing to do, especially if we're going to be on a playoff run, because then you can use him as that sort of middle ground between the bullpen start and not one of your, saving one of your top 3 guys. So it's very interesting. It's going to be a topic of conversation throughout this season. I know a lot of people wanted us to talk about this, at least get it to the forefront sort of in the media of, hey, what's going on? What, is there any plans? As far as we know, we've heard no plans about the extension of Kikuchi. There really hasn't been any talk about it online. So I think as this season progresses, it's going to be more and more interesting to see what happens with Yusei Kikuchi. But I know that the MLB season is very close to getting underway here. So Carter, where should they check out?
Yeah, it's a perfect opportunity to go to our 24/7 Locked On streaming service on YouTube. Whether you want to watch college sports, baseball, NHL, we always say this. It's the best opportunity you guys have to watch sports at any time throughout the day. So just go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to our first ever national 24/7 sports streaming channel.
We will be right back. We want to talk a ton about these athletic uniforms these Fanatic uniforms that these players will be wearing this season because, oh my God, do they look horrible. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get buckets with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and more. I know that I've looked over a ton of the FanDuel pre-made same-game parlays. They're my favorite. Those are the ones I'm going to because they keep winning me money. And I'm going to stay away from my pre-made bets myself because those keep losing me money. So I'm going to go with FanDuel. I'm backing FanDuel hard on those same-game parlays, those pre-made ones that they have. I will also be, like we've been talking about, Kikuchi betting the strikeouts. I'm a big strikeout better as well. So when the season gets underway with FanDuel, I will be betting on those Kikuchi's overs on the strikeouts.
And
just visit
You could have some Kevin Gausman over some strikeouts as well. And if it keeps trending like this, Alek Manoah might have the easiest walk total of all time. So you might have to hit on that as well.
That's right. I'll have a ton to look for this season upcoming with FanDuel. So just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Oh my goodness. Okay. So, well, we've been waiting for this for a long time. We've been waiting a long time to talk about these horrible uniforms that these guys are going to be wearing this season. Carter, I know me and you have been all over the Twitters, sort of I was actually at work the other day, and of course, we just end up talking about sports. We're sitting in the newsroom, we're talking about sports, right? So of course, this Fanatics jersey stuff comes up, and it makes me think, okay, well, maybe I should do a deep dive. I knew they were horrible, but how bad are they? Well, if I have to see a guy's balls coming through his pants, Carter, this isn't going to be a great season for some of these players.
Hey, this might draw in a female audience though for some of these guys because you get the full view of everything going on. I don't know who approved translucent pants, like who approved the idea that you could see literally everything going on. Like, why even wear pants? Like, you might as well just go out there without pants on at this point. It doesn't make any sense. I don't know how those got approved. And just some of the scenarios we're seeing on Twitter, on Instagram. I saw one where this guy had like one of those hyphenated names, so it was a longer last name. And instead of just making the font smaller on the jersey, they decided to go around the numbers. So it's almost like a rainbow. I'll try to like point it out for you guys on the podcast. It's like a rainbow goes over the numbers and like arches around. It looked like this the greasiest thing I've ever seen.
Well, and see, the problem is that the MLB knows how bad Fanatics jerseys are, right? They've seen them when they made NHL jerseys. They are horrible. So at the end of the day, this comes down to the MLB obviously wanting to make a ton of money off these jerseys, right? Save money, whatever. But the Nike jerseys are so great. They were awesome. Like, I have a ton of them. It's actually ridiculous how many jerseys I have right now. There's one's back there. And they were, they were light. They weren't those heavy, like the whatever that what were cotton. Which ones did we have in high school? The cotton ones that we
Pretty
had the
much,
first couple of
yeah.
years.
Even those were better than the ones I think they have right now. Like at least those quality, they kept you warm. They had better numbers. The lettering looked better. They're like you can name 1,000 things about those jerseys that are better than the Fanatics ones right now.
Yeah, and the other problem is that sometimes the Fanatics makes where the numbers are actually like off kilter. Like if it's a number 10, the number 1 will be in the right place, and then the 0 will be actually just slightly lower than the 1, so it actually looks off. And then the names are small. They're not. It doesn't feel like they're bold and easy to see. And I don't know. I don't know if there's anything fans can do. We've obviously everybody on Twitter has made the case that these are horrible. So what is the MLB doing about this? Like, there's no way that they go through this for the next couple of years and just being like, well, these jerseys suck, so hope fans will still buy them, screw them, whatever. Like, that'd be criminal to me.
That's the tough thing about the MLB. They already make so much money, and just like I'm a big enough fan that no matter how much a jersey is or how bad it does look, I'm probably still going to support the team because baseball does take over my life. But I was actually looking for a Justin Turner jersey on the Fanatics website, and they're selling these things for $230 Canadian.
Ooh.
I don't want to pay $230 Canadian for even a good jersey. It's tough to justify that. But for a Fanatics jersey where I might not even get the numbers like lined up properly, it is ridiculous. I don't know if you saw this as well, but this was another Twitter post. I think it was just a spring training player. Like it was a guy playing on a roster. I believe it was the Mariners, but he posted his jersey just like saying ready for spring training. And a fan reposted it and said, like, dude, your numbers are like completely messed up, man. Like you gotta get this thing worked out. And then Fanatics actually commented on the post and like said, "Oh, it looks like there was a little bit of a mess up here. We can like send you a new one and correct our mistake." And I don't think they realized that this was actual spring training player that was
Yeah.
about to play in a game that day. So I just found it funny how they commented on that. They did acknowledge their mistakes, but I mean, the quality of this jersey's like they're terrible. They're not, the logos aren't even hand sewn on anymore. They're just heat pressed. It's just they're getting every cheapskate way they can out of this just to make money off the fans, and it is kind of disgusting in my opinion.
Well, and the other part of it is, so I don't remember in the Baseball Classic, I don't know if you remember this, but in the Baseball Classic, Great Britain's jerseys were the Fanatics jerseys, and the letters on their, like, the Great Britain, like, text was coming off the jerseys as the pitcher was pitching. So he was wiping his hands on the jersey, and the T fell off of his jersey in the Great Britain. So it's like, these are professional baseball players, and their jerseys are falling apart mid-game? Like,
Oh,
I don't know. There's got to be something done here.
it's just a bad look for the MLB, just going the complete cheapskate route and not just putting a little bit more effort, at least into like the player jerseys. You would think, like, I know the MLB, they do care about the fans. They say they care so much about the fans. At the end of the day, a lot of these business orientated things are just about the money. So in that, like, they do have to make money off the jerseys. I get that, but I would rather pay for a quality jersey than just some like pressed on T-shirt you can almost wear to any event that you go to at all. But another thing that I saw on these Fanatics jerseys is the Kansas City Royals actually got the new jerseys, but with the old lettering. And we compared it to, I think it was the Angels that just were wearing the new jerseys, and the lettering, you could just tell the old quality was a million times better. You could actually see who the player was. You can see their number. And as a fan, like, how else are you supposed to pick out somebody on the field if you can't read their name or see their number? Like, that could just be, it could be just all Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s going out there and you would have no idea.
Yeah, especially for maybe fans that, they want to try to grow the game. They're always trying to grow the game. And say a fan comes to their first baseball game, doesn't know a ton, and they can't see the guys' numbers or names on the back of their jerseys. Like, this is a big problem, and the MLB needs to step up here and take some responsibility for this. And I feel like there's not enough pushback from the MLB of quality control, whatever it is, their quality control department or whatever. Like, there has to be something, you'd think, right?
They must have got like a huge discount on these jersey deals with Fanatics. There's obviously something going on behind the scenes that we're not getting the full scoop on. I'm very surprised that the MLB decided to go this route, and it's just a horrible look for the league, right? It's when you're going to a game and you can't even watch the game with the jerseys being put together for the whole game. Like you said, Great Britain, the numbers are falling off, the lettering's falling off. Like, it just looks like beer league jerseys have better jerseys than these. So that's the craziest thing when you look at it from this perspective.
Well, I'll tell you. So, a couple of our buddies bought a jersey off of a what are they called? Like, not official site, we'll say, right? Where you send them in, you get them done, and they're done so perfectly to the actual jerseys that, honest to God, I've seen them, and I think that they look better than Fanatics jerseys, which is crazy. This off-brand site that does jerseys better than the official MLB jerseys.
For probably 10% of the cost as well, which is what fans might have to start looking into. They might have to start going these off-brand routes if they're going to look just as nice or even nicer than the actual jerseys. Why wouldn't you go this way for $35 compared to $200+ in the grand scheme of things? The MLB is probably going to lose money off of this because fans are just going to stop buying jerseys and they're going to go to off-brand routes.
Well, and the worst part is this year the Blue Jays are getting a City Connect jersey, which I was pumped for. I've been waiting for this. I'm like, okay, as soon as this City Connect jersey drops, it's gonna be in my cart. It's gonna be purchased, and I'm wearing that thing everywhere. But now it's Fanatics jerseys. Do I want a Toronto Blue Jays Fanatics City Connect jersey that's gonna fall apart on me? I don't know.
And is this something Fanatics can even fix? Or if they got so far gone with this, they'd almost have to completely rebrand or just get a new deal with a different company?
Personally, I think it's too far gone. I think it comes down, and they're not gonna be able to get out of this. It's a contract, right? So I think we're just stuck and we're screwed for I don't even know how many years. I don't know what the Fanatics deal is, but I think we're just gonna have to go through it as baseball fans for the next little while with these garbage uniforms.
Yeah, we might just have to start buying like white T-shirts or maybe some blue T-shirts for the Blue Jays, and we'll start just getting the hockey tape out and we'll tape on some numbers. I'll probably look at the equivalent. Honestly, we might get some questions being like, "Hey, which one's the real jersey?" We can go out and ask some people on the street about that.
Oh my God, where did you get these jerseys? They look outstanding.
Oh man, they must have had a new quality. Like, I love the lettering; you can actually read it. It's crazy.
We want to, of course, always thank you guys for tuning in. We hope you liked that Fanatics segment. We did a bunch on Kikuchi today. It was fun. I always really enjoy talking about Kikuchi. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode and getting ready for the weekend.
Yeah, just before we send off again, I wanted to shout out our 24/7 Locked On streaming service. You guys already know what it is. Just go there for all of your sports content. Whatever you want to see, it's going to be on there 24/7. So just head over to YouTube and subscribe to our first ever 24/7 streaming channel.